The Cousins. The summer of 2007 felt like it belonged to us. I was 10 years old, the kind of kid who still believed the world was mostly good, that strangers were just friends you hadn't met yet, that adults told the truth, and that bad things only happened in movies. I had no reason to think otherwise. My life was Little League games on Saturday mornings, backyard barbecues, and fighting with my sisters over the TV remote. Normal, safe, predictable. That was the summer my parents decided to take us to Disney World. Not Disneyland, Disney World. Orlando, Florida. The real deal. My dad had been saving up for 2 years, quietly tucking money away in an envelope he kept behind the cereal boxes in the pantry. My mom had printed out the entire trip itinerary, color-coded by day, laminated, with little Mickey Mouse stickers on each activity. My sisters and I had been counting down the days on a paper chain we made out of construction paper that stretched from the kitchen doorway all the way to the living room couch. We were flying out of Chicago O'Hare on a Tuesday midnight departure. My mom's logic was practical and parental. The late flight would save us almost $300 on tickets, and she figured my sisters and I would sleep through most of it. My youngest sister, Kayla, was 5. My other sister, Becca, was 8. I was the oldest at 10, which, in my mind, made me basically a co-parent on this trip. The terminal was quiet the way only a midnight terminal can be. That specific, heavy kind of quiet that feels like the airport itself is half asleep. The overhead lights had that yellowish, tired glow. A few travelers were scattered across the rows of seats, heads tilted back or buried in phones. A janitor pushed a cart slowly down the hall, the wheels squeaking softly against the linoleum. We'd found a cluster of seats near our gate. My dad had set all 5 carry-on bags in a neat row along the floor, like soldiers. My mom was exhausted. She'd been running around all week making sure everything was packed, every document printed, every charger accounted for. She stood up, told us she was taking Kayla to the bathroom, and disappeared down the corridor. My dad waited maybe 2 minutes. "Hey, buddy," he said to me, leaning down. "Watch Becca for a second, okay? I'm just gonna grab something from the cafe. I'll be right back." "Don't move." I nodded. Becca was half asleep in her chair, her head drooping toward her shoulder, a stuffed elephant tucked under her arm. I had my Game Boy in my lap. I wasn't worried. The cafe was maybe 40 feet away. I could practically see it. I'd been playing for maybe 3 minutes when I felt a hand on my back. I looked up. A woman had sat down right next to me, closer than a stranger normally would. She was middle-aged, wearing a light blue cardigan and thick-frame glasses, her hair cut short. She had the kind of smile that seemed just slightly too wide, like she was working hard to maintain it. Her eyes were bright in a way that felt rehearsed. "Oh my goodness," she said, in a voice that was warm and bubbly, and just a little too loud for the sleeping terminal. "Look at you two. Aren't you just the sweetest things?" I blinked. Becca stirred slightly, but didn't wake up. "Where are your folks?" the woman asked, her hand still on my back, rubbing in small circles. "They'll be right back," I said. I pulled slightly away from her touch without really meaning to, just instinct. Before I could say anything else, a man appeared. He came from the same direction the woman had, and the two of them moved like they were choreographed. He was also middle-aged, heavy-set, wearing a baseball cap and a windbreaker. His smile matched hers, wide, practiced, warm in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Well, hey there, little guys," he boomed like we were old friends. He looked at the woman, then back at us. Then he slapped his knee like he just remembered something important. "You know what? I just ran into your dad over at that cafe. What a small world." He shook his head with a grin. I'm your dad's cousin, Mike, and this here is my wife, Susan. We haven't seen you kids in ages." Becca had woken up by now. She was looking at the man with sleepy, uncertain eyes. I looked at her. She looked at me. Something in my chest felt off. Not alarm bells. I was 10. I didn't have alarm bells yet. More like a low hum. A wrongness I couldn't name. But they knew our dad. They said they knew our dad. And they were smiling. And adults who were smiling were safe, right? That's what I'd always been taught. "Hi," Becca said quietly. "Hi," I echoed. "You want to come meet our kids?" the man said, crouching slightly, extending his hand toward Becca. "They're just outside. They'd love to meet you." The woman extended her hand to me at the same moment. It happened so naturally, so smoothly, like it had been rehearsed 100 times before. Becca reached out and took the man's hand. I took the woman's. And just like that, we were standing, walking, following two complete strangers out of our gate. I don't know why I didn't scream. I don't know why I didn't plant my feet. I know, it was because they seemed so normal, so cheerful, so sure of themselves. We walked past the cafe. I looked in, expecting to see my dad, but I couldn't find his face in the small cluster of people inside. We walked past the cafe, past a newsstand, past a row of payphones. We walked to the top of a staircase I'd never noticed before, and we started walking down it. The noise of the terminal faded above us. The parking lot was visible through the glass doors at the bottom of the stairs. Dark, empty. Rows and rows of cars under orange sodium lights. That's when it clicked. "Where are we going?" I asked. My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to. The woman looked down at me. Her smile hadn't changed at all. "Our car's just right outside, honey. The kids are waiting." Outside. The word landed in my chest like a stone. I stopped walking. I pulled my hand free from the woman's grip. "We want to go back," I said. My voice was shaking. I reached over and grabbed Becca's hand, pulling it away from the man. "We want to go back inside." The smiles disappeared, both of them at exactly the same moment, like someone had cut the power. What happened next lasted maybe 4 seconds, but I have replayed it in my mind hundreds of times over the years. The man moved first. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me from behind. Not a hug, a pin, lifting me slightly off the ground. At the same time, the woman grabbed Becca. Becca started screaming. I started screaming. And then, thank God, voices from above. Shouting. 2 men in uniforms came flying down the stairs, and the couple dropped us like we'd burned them. They ran, actually ran, through the glass doors and into the parking lot, disappearing between the cars with a speed that seemed impossible for 2 middle-aged people. One of the officers chased them. The other knelt down to me and Becca, talking quietly, his voice steady. He walked us back up the stairs, through the terminal, all the way back to our gate, where my mom was standing with Kayla, her face white. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. She dropped to her knees and grabbed both of us and held on for a long time, without saying a word. We still went to Disney World. We still rode every ride. We still ate the Mickey-shaped waffles and watched the parade and took the photos. My parents never really talked about what happened at the airport. Not directly, not to us kids. But I noticed after that trip that my dad never left us alone in a public place again. Not once. Not even for 30 seconds. I was 10 years old. I didn't fully understand what had almost happened until I was much older. I still don't like airports at midnight. The warning. I was 26 the first time I flew alone for work. I'd just landed a position at a mid-sized marketing firm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they wanted me to come in for a second-round interview in person. I booked the flight myself, a red-eye out of Philadelphia International departing on a Thursday night in late February. The kind of night where the wind cuts through your coat like it's not even there, and the sky is the deep charcoal gray of a storm that hasn't decided whether to commit yet. I arrived early. I always arrive early. It's an anxiety thing, a need to scope out exits and seating before a space fills up. The terminal was sparse, maybe 15, 20 people spread across rows of plastic chairs, everyone keeping to themselves, everyone sealed inside their own private world of earbuds and phone screens and paperback novels. I found a seat near the window, put my carry-on between my feet, and settled in. I had about 40 minutes before boarding. I was maybe 10 minutes into a podcast when someone sat down 2 seats away from me. It wasn't strange on its own. There were plenty of open seats, sure, but people make weird choices in terminals. Some people like to cluster near others when they're nervous about flying. I barely registered it. What I registered was when I looked up. He was staring at me, not a glance, not a casual survey of the room, staring, direct, unblinking, with an intensity that made the back of my neck go cold. He was heavy-set, wearing a dark jacket, no carry-on that I could see. His eyes didn't move when I looked at him. I looked away fast, stared at my phone like it had suddenly become the most interesting object in the world. But I could feel it, that specific, awful sensation of being watched, like a physical pressure. Then I felt his breath near my ear. He had leaned over across the empty seat between us until his mouth was maybe 6 inches from the side of my head. "I need to tell you something," he whispered. "Those 2 men sitting across from you, the ones in the gray jackets, they're on your flight, and they're planning on taking you when you land." I turned my head slowly. He was already leaning back, sitting straight, looking forward. His face was completely calm. He said it the way you'd tell someone they had a smudge on their face, matter of fact, quiet, almost bored. "What?" I said, but he was already standing. He picked up nothing because he had nothing. He walked away down the terminal corridor without looking back, and within 30 seconds my flight was called. I stood on legs that didn't feel entirely like mine and joined the boarding line. The 2 men he'd pointed to, gray jackets, both of them, got in line ahead of me. They were maybe in their late 30s, average build, nothing distinctive about them at first glance. But as I passed them to reach my row, they both turned and looked at me at the same moment. Not a curious look, a measuring look, the kind of look that takes inventory. I sat in my seat and spent the next 2.5 hours staring at the backs of their headrests. When we landed in Charlotte, I stayed in my seat until nearly everyone had deplaned. I watched the 2 men walk off the plane. I followed at a distance, keeping other travelers between us. In the baggage claim, I positioned myself so I could see the exit. And then I saw them. They were standing outside, near a red minivan in the short-term lot, not loading bags, not checking phones, just standing there, scanning the faces of people coming out of the terminal. When they saw me looking at them, they stepped back behind the van. I went back inside. I sat in the baggage claim for 30 minutes. I called a cab, waited for it at the interior pickup, and rode straight to my hotel without once letting myself look back. I got the job, by the way. I drove to Charlotte for every subsequent meeting. I never flew into that airport again. And I never found out who the man in the terminal was, how he knew what he knew, or what those 2 men actually wanted. I've told this story to a handful of people over the years. Most of them say the same thing. You're lucky someone said something. Yeah, I know. The stairwell. Last spring I was at JFK with 5 of my closest friends. We'd been planning the trip for almost 8 months, a full week in a rented beach house down in Florida. The kind of trip you talk about until it becomes this mythological thing. Half vacation, half survival event. 6 people. 1 house, 1 beach, 0 responsibilities for 7 days. We'd been insufferable about it. The terminal was packed. It was a Friday afternoon, and every gate in that concourse seemed to be boarding at once. People were everywhere, rushing, dragging luggage, arguing over gate numbers. Our group had found a cluster of seats and was cycling through the usual pre-flight rituals. Snacks, bathroom runs, last-minute phone charging. I suddenly realized I really needed to use the restroom. I headed toward the nearest bathroom and stopped when I saw the line. It was backed up past the doorway and snaking down the hall. Probably a 15-minute wait, minimum. I wasn't going to make it. A janitor was pushing a cart past me at that moment. I stepped over and asked quietly if she knew of another bathroom nearby. She slowed, glanced down the hallway, then back at me. She had the expression of someone who was about to break a small rule. "I probably shouldn't be telling people this," she said, "but there's another one past that door down there." She pointed to a plain gray door, the kind you'd assume was a utility closet. "Down the stairs, take a left. Not many people know about it." I thanked her and headed over. The door was heavier than it looked. Behind it was a narrow stairwell. Concrete walls, flickering fluorescent lights, the smell of cleaning solution, and something older underneath it, the kind of space that makes you understand why horror movies are set in basements. At the bottom, a hallway. It was barely wide enough for 2 people to pass each other comfortably. The lighting was dim. One of the bulbs at the far end either burned out or missing entirely. The bathroom door was immediately to my left, heavy steel, the kind that requires actual effort to push open. Inside, the lights were on. The fixtures were functional but old. The single stall was clearly not part of any regular cleaning rotation. Grout black with mildew. Paper towel dispenser half collapsed. Soap dispenser empty. The mirror had a crack in the lower right corner. I did what I always do in unfamiliar public restrooms. I checked the stall to confirm I was alone, then stepped back out into the hallway to make sure no one was about to come in. That was when I saw him. At the far end of the hallway, in the dim, unlit section where the dead bulb left a pocket of shadow, someone was standing, just standing, facing my direction, not moving. I pulled back into the bathroom like my body had made the decision before my brain caught up. I went into the stall and locked it. I stood there with my back against the wall, breathing slowly, listening. The bathroom door opened. I watched a pair of black shoes appear under the stall door. They stopped just outside my stall, then slowly moved 1 step to the right, to the stool beside mine. The door closed. The latch clicked. Silence. No sounds of someone using the restroom. Nothing. Just silence and the faint sound of my own breathing. I unlocked my stall door as quietly as I could and started to pull it open. I looked up. His face was peering over the top of the stall divider, looking directly down at me. I don't remember making a sound, but apparently I did. I heard it echoing back off the tile walls as I bolted out of the stall, hit the bathroom door with my shoulder, shoved it open, ran down the hallway, took the stairs 2 at a time, hit the door at the top, and emerged back into the bright, loud, crowded terminal. I walked back to my friends. I sat down. I was breathing hard enough that my friend Marcus looked at me sideways. "You okay?" "Yep," I said. "Fine." I didn't say anything else. Part of it was embarrassment. The story felt ridiculous to say out loud. and I knew exactly how my friends would react. Part of it was that I hadn't fully processed what had happened yet. I just sat there with my hands in my lap, watching the boarding screen, waiting for our flight number to appear. We had an incredible week in Florida. Sun, beach, cold drinks, all of it. Exactly what we'd planned. But every night before I fell asleep in that rental house, I thought about those black shoes, that silence, that face appearing over the divider. Some things don't get processed on vacation. Some things just wait. The lobby. My wife, Rachel, took a long weekend trip to Las Vegas with 3 of her closest girlfriends back in October. I was her ride to the airport, and I was her ride back. This is the arrangement we've had since we got married. Whoever's not traveling does the airport run. No exceptions, no Ubers, just get a cab. It's one of those small rituals that sounds sentimental but is really just practical. We like knowing the other person is there at the end. Her flight home was scheduled to land at 4:15 in the afternoon. I got to the airport at 4 o'clock, parked in short term, and went inside to wait in the arrivals lobby. Her flight was delayed, not unusual, so I found a seat near the bottom of the escalators and settled in. She came through about 20 minutes late. I spotted her before she spotted me. She was laughing at something one of her friends had said, her carry-on rolling behind her, sunglasses still on, even though she'd been on a plane for 4 hours. I waved and she broke into a jog and hugged me. We said hello to her friends. Hugs all around. They started heading toward the parking structure and Rachel and I began walking toward the exit. That was when she patted her pockets. She checked her jacket, then her carry-on's front pocket, then her purse, then started over again, slower. "My wallet," she said, "and my keys. I can't find them." We went back up, all 3 of us, me, Rachel, and her friend Diane, who offered to help. We checked the gate area, retraced her steps through the terminal, asked an airline worker to have the plane checked. We spent close to an hour going through every logical place those items could be. Nothing. Rachel was insistent. She remembered having both the wallet and her keys after she got off the plane. She specifically remembered putting her keys in her jacket pocket on the jet bridge. But the items were simply gone. Eventually, we gave up and went home. Rachel was quiet the whole drive back. The kind of quiet that's really just anger turned inward. She hated losing things, hated the feeling of disorganization. I didn't push her to talk. When we got home, she went straight upstairs. I heard her drop her bag onto the bed, that satisfying, solid thump of a suitcase hitting a mattress. And I figured she was about to unpack, decompress, let the weekend land. Then I heard the scream. Not a startled sound. Not, oh no, energy. A full chest-deep primal scream that brought me off the kitchen floor and up the stairs in maybe 3 seconds flat. Rachel was standing in the doorway of our bedroom, pointing at the bathroom. I looked. The bathroom door was closed. Then I looked at the 2 closet doors on the opposite wall, both of them hanging open. The contents of both closets partially dragged out or knocked to the floor. Shoeboxes opened. A box of old documents scattered. The hanging organizer on the back of the door torn down. "Someone's in the bathroom," Rachel said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. He walked right past me. He looked right at me. I have thought about that moment a lot since then. The specific quality of the fear I felt standing outside that locked bathroom door. The sound of nothing from inside. The absolute certainty that someone was on the other side of it. I told Rachel to leave the room. I heard her go downstairs, and later she told me she called 911 the second she hit the bottom step. I tried the doorknob. Locked, of course. Our bathroom door is old. The frame is old. The whole house was built in 1967, and certain things have never been updated. I gave the door one solid hit with my shoulder, then another, then a third. On the fifth, the frame gave and the door swung open. Empty. The window above the bathtub was wide open. The screen had been pushed out. It was a 6-foot drop to the bushes below. When the police arrived, I stood in the hallway and listened to Rachel describe what she'd seen. The man had been tall. She used the word looming, which stuck with me. He'd been standing near the closets when she came in, and when she made a sound, he walked. Didn't run, walked. Past her toward the bathroom. He looked at her the entire time. Wide eyes, blank face, not a word. The working theory was straightforward. He'd found her wallet and keys in the terminal, followed her through baggage claim, followed our car, waited for us to leave again, and let himself in. He was in the house when we came back. He was in the house while we stood in the arrivals lobby. He was in our bedroom while Rachel unpacked. We changed every lock in the house the next morning. We installed a security system the week after. Rachel still checks every room when she comes home. I don't blame her. The last gate. I want to tell you one more story. This one is different from the others. Less about what happened and more about what almost happened and about the strange grace of timing. I was 31. It was a Sunday evening in early November, and I was flying home from a business conference in Denver. The flight was a connection through Dallas. 2 legs, standard stuff. The kind of travel that's so routine you stop really seeing it. Dallas-Fort Worth was enormous that evening. It always is. But Sundays in November have a specific energy. People rushing home from weekends, families wrapping up visits. The concourse is loud with rolling luggage and gate announcements. I had an hour between my connecting flights, enough time for food and a phone charge. I found a restaurant at the end of the concourse, ate quickly, and then found an outlet near Gate 42 and sat down to charge my phone. The area was busy but not packed. I had my bag between my feet and my boarding pass in my jacket pocket. I'd been sitting there maybe 15 minutes when I noticed the woman across the aisle looking at me. She was in her mid-50s, traveling alone, well-dressed in the way that suggests someone who flies often. She didn't look away when I met her eyes. Instead, she gave me a small, deliberate nod, the kind that means, I need to tell you something. I pulled out my earbuds. I don't want to alarm you, she said, keeping her voice low, but the man who sat down behind you about 10 minutes ago has been taking photos of you. I've watched him do it at least 3 times. I turned slowly, casually, like I was just looking around. There was a man in the seat directly behind mine, angled so that the camera of his phone would have a clean shot of my face and my carry-on. He was staring at his phone screen. When I looked back, he didn't react, didn't look up. "Did you check a bag?" the woman asked. I shook my head. Everything was carry-on. "Then he knows what your bag looks like," she said. "And he has your face." I thought about that for a moment. The bag had my laptop, my wallet, my work documents. My boarding pass had my full name printed on it, and I'd been holding it in my hand earlier. I thanked the woman. I picked up my bag. I walked to the nearest gate agent and told them what I'd observed. 2 airport security officers came within 4 minutes. The man was still there when they arrived, still on his phone, still angled toward where I'd been sitting. I don't know what they found. I was already at my new gate by the time they finished talking to him. I boarded my flight, sat in my seat, and spent the 3-hour trip home thinking about the woman who'd spoken up. I never got her name. She was gone by the time the security situation was handled. I don't know if she caught the same flight as me or went a different direction. But I think about her every time I sit in a terminal now, I think about the 10-year-old kid in Chicago who almost walked out of an airport with two strangers, and the couple who let go when they heard voices on the stairs. I think about the man in Philadelphia who leaned over and whispered a warning to someone he'd never met. I think about the things that almost happened in dark stairwells and locked bedrooms. And I think about how many times something worse was avoided, not because of an alarm system or a locked door or a security camera, but because of a person who noticed something, said something, and trusted their instinct that it mattered. Airports are strange places. They're designed for transition, for movement, for the hours between who you were before you left and who you'll be when you arrive. Most of the time, nothing happens. But sometimes, in the quiet of a midnight terminal, or a dimly lit stairwell, or the arrivals lobby of an airport you've been to 100 times before, something is already in motion. And what happens next depends entirely on whether you're paying attention. Stay aware. Stay together. Trust the feeling when something's wrong.